Survival Guide to Life. And we have a very special episode for you this week. And we bring back guest Dr. Michelle Gamble. If you haven't heard the episode, pause it right now and go back and listen to that. And then come back and start listening. So,
Yeah.
just from the beginning of my frame of thought, Doctor was especially with coming into the new year and trying to maybe bring in new habits and leave old habits,
Mhm.
especially with trying to find like holistic approaches to things. Well, how does one sort of really uh, find time to be in the so to say rat race, but then do due diligence to yourself.
Mm. Well, time management is always a challenge because one of the things we have to do is ask ourselves, what are our priorities? One of the blessings in a certain way with COVID has been that it has allowed people to reflect and consider or reconsider what their priorities are in life, what is most important to you. And the reality is that we make time for what we deem is important. So, in many respects, people always say to me, "Oh, Dr. G, I just don't have time for such and such." And yet, when we look at their schedule, or should I say, how they spend their time, they don't realize how they're actually wasting their time, meaning that we spend a lot of time being busy as opposed to actually getting things accomplished. One example of this is that about a year ago, I changed my Gmail system so that I only answer my emails 3 times a day, 8:30, 1:30, and 4:30. Other than that, it's paused because what I realized was I was spending a lot of time, constantly checking my email, constantly checking my email. And you don't realize how that time adds up. So we spend a lot of time doing things in a non-intentional manner. And subsequently, when we look at carving out time to prioritize what's important for us, that is going to be a prerequisite to really examine where you're spending your time. So, an exercise that I do with my clients to get them ready for this is to ask them to make a journal of every single minute of their lives for a week, to write down and to, in blocks, how they're spending their time for a week so that they become much more conscious of where they're spending their time. You don't realize how much time you spend just, sitting and going through your phone, how much time that eats up. 2 minutes here, 5 minutes there, as opposed to saying, you know what, I'm putting the phone away and I'm not going to look at it until XYZ time. And at that time, I'm going to spend 10 minutes doing it, and that's it. You know, Also, the amount of time that we spend having a lot of conversations that don't go anywhere, that don't necessarily uplift us. So we tend to have relationships that linger. Maybe we grew up with people or we went to school with people, and we still stay in their presence and interact with them, even though for some of them, they become actually toxic to us because, after we have a conversation, we realize that our energy is drained or we're, upset or whatever it is. Or we find that we're just spending our time just gossiping, talking about stuff that doesn't help to promote either of us in that conversation. Looking also at how much time we spend doing things like watching TV, binge watching on Hulu or whatever that is. So even like I said for myself, I had to say, you know what? I'm doing an allotment. No more than one show on weekdays. And that's it, during the hours of this and this. And then the last thing to do is to just make up your mind as to what is most important. For me, what I recognize is that sleep is a priority for me. Everything has to revolve around sleep for me. So I need to make sure that I'm in bed between 9:30 and 10, because when I am not in bed between 9:30 and 10, I can recognize the difference in my energy level, in my attitude, and everything else, the day after. So those are the three steps, becoming aware of how we're spending our time. Second step is identifying which activities uplift us versus which activities drain us, and what are the people or circumstances attached to those different activities. And number three, making a conscious decision to maybe let go of some of those drains, those energy drains, so that we can transfer our time allotment to what uplifts us,
Okay, that
to what renews us, to what builds us.
that makes complete sense. And I guess it's I had this kind of saying where it's like everything echoes, and it was funny because I was just going through some notes or article about motivation, and it said something along these lines: is like, be mindful for a week and really see where you're spending your time. Then you could see what's beneficial and what's not.
Yeah.
uh, so I was like, in my head I was like, that's awesome. So now with the like this coming of the quote unquote vaccine, and it made me think of Dr. Sebi's quote about, I think it was like, a society that keeps cures secret so they can sell medicines for a huge profit. It's not a society but a mental asylum. And then
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. I was like, it it made me ponder, and I was like, now with like the nurses who like, or the frontline who have to get this, I've heard from my end what people say it's conspiracy, but I have my strong belief in, like, there is harm in flu shots and things like that. And what's a better approach to like trying to have your immune system on par for, like, say, winter or things like that?
Well, there are a couple layers to that. Number one, it's a paradigm shift in terms of recognizing or acknowledging that we were divinely designed to heal. That is the default setting for us. Unfortunately, in our society, we as men and women have messed up the design and screwed up with the mechanisms. So instead of trusting in Mother Nature to be able to assist us in overcoming viruses, bacteria, and things of that nature, we further sabotage our own health by doing a couple of things. So one of the things that we need to look at with regards to our immune system is not simply what builds our immune system, but actually what compromises our immune system is perhaps even more critical. So the things that compromise our immune systems are, number one, what we eat, such as processed foods, white flour, white milk, white sugar. All of these things are refined foods that not only do they cause a significant drain on our bodies in terms of stripping our bodies of vital minerals and vitamins to help your body to process those quote unquote foods, but also because they create a significant level of toxicity, inflammation, and free radical activity. Those things create a situation where the best of us become compromised because of those particular saboteurs. So that'll be the first thing that I would suggest to people, to really clear out as much as possible refined foods, especially things like sugar and refined carbohydrates, which convert into sugar. The other thing to look at is, as we were saying, how we manage our time. How do we utilize our time? Many people are not sleeping properly. And sleep is perhaps your biggest defense when it comes to building your immunity. If you do not have proper levels of sleep, you will have a compromised immune system. you probably will reflect on your life, maybe when you were in college or even in grade school, high school or whatever. And if you went a significant number of days, maybe doing term papers or playing sports or whatever, and not getting the sleep that you needed, you may realize that, those were the times when I got the cold, or when I ended up getting sick, or things of that nature. And that's because your body was not being restored at night with sleep. There's no pill that you can take that can replace the wonderful benefits of sleep. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So sleep is critical. Another thing that is critical is proper water consumption. Most people do not drink sufficient water. To compound that situation, many people drink things like soda and coffee. And every time you drink a glass of soda or coffee, you're going to need the equivalent of 4 or 5 glasses of water to detoxify that particular consumption. So you're putting yourself further into the negative when you consume those particular types of drinks. And I'm not saying that you don't consume them. I'm just saying to be aware of how that balances out in terms of what your body needs, whether or not that is going to drain energy from your body or give energy to your system. So we have known for a significant amount of time that things such as soda are extremely crippling to the immune system, for a variety of reasons, including that which I just talked about. And then the other area to look at is movement. A lot of people, especially with the insanity of lockdowns, they're not moving. They're kind of stagnant. We spend so much more time in front of these ungodly machines that we call computers or electronic devices or whatever it is. And we're not moving, we're not grooving. We're not even going shopping in the store, because now everybody's getting things delivered. And now you go to the store and they're like, oh, drive up and we'll put all your stuff into your car for you. So you're not even getting the exercise of walking through the malls or walking through the grocery stores or whatever it is. A lot of people are not walking out into parks and things of that nature. And that, again, compromises the immune system. And then one of my favorites is love and actual physical contact. What I tell people all the time is that we build immunity by creating and strengthening community. So I know this goes against everything that you hear out there on CNN and ABC and NBC and all of that nonsense, okay, that's telling you to stay at home and be afraid, be very, very afraid, and stay away from everybody because they're going to kill you with their germs. Ironically, we were designed to be people that interact with other people. Love goes a long way. Physical touch goes a long way. We've known for decades that people need physical contact. Just picking up a phone is not sufficient. And this goes back to studies that were done with newborn babies, where they gave, one set of babies, they gave all of their nutritional needs and everything of that nature, but they didn't give them any kind of hugs or any kind of touch. And then the other group, they gave them the nutritional supplementation that they needed, as well as hugs and touches and kisses and all those things. And after a certain amount of time, they had to actually discontinue the study because the babies who were not receiving physical contact were dying. And this is a very famous study that has been done decades ago. And yet we have health professionals in this country that are telling us to stay away from each other, to not touch each other, not hug each other. And that is the biggest recipe for insanity, number one, and compromising immune system, number two. So then, when I say this, I'm not saying that if somebody is definitely symptomatic and has a runny nose and snot and phlegming all over the place, that you go over there and smush and smug. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. What I am saying is that we cannot get caught up in this insanity of looking at each other as the enemy. The truth of the matter is that the coronavirus is not the enemy. The enemy right now is the fact that we have systems that are weakened, that are compromised, capable of being able to weather the storm. And when I say us, I'm talking about certain people in certain categories, right?
Yeah.
So for the normal person, especially our children, the reality is that the coronavirus, along with other viruses and bacteria, are actually stressors that will strengthen the immune system. Because the way that you strengthen the immune system is by exposing it to a variety of bacteria and viruses, so that the immune system recognizes these things, starts to create its own line of defense, and gets that kind of exercise. What I tell people all the time is, you don't build strong, healthy muscles by sitting on your couch and eating ding dongs and ho hos and avoiding the gym. You've got to go to the gym and challenge your muscles and have that pain and stretch. And literally what happens is that your muscles will tear apart and come back together stronger. And that is how you build muscles. So it's the same thing with the immune system. So we have people running around with these hand sanitizers, slathering themselves and their poor babies and everything else. And that is compromising their best defense, because 70 to 80% of our immune system is in our gut. And what people unrationally are doing is utilizing these antibacterial sanitizers. And for the life of me, I don't understand why, because it says clearly that it's antibacterial. It's not even as if it were antiviral, right? And now, not only are they not doing anything against the quote unquote coronavirus, but now they're compromising their body's immune system in the form of their intestinal microbiota. And so when a virus does come in, they are more susceptible. They are more likely to have complications from the virus. So those things, and last but not least, is going out into the sunshine. What the studies have shown us is that the people who are becoming more and more susceptible to having issues with the coronavirus are vitamin D deficient. They're not getting sufficient sunshine. Now, this is even more of an issue for people who have melanin, such as myself. The more melanin you have, the more vitamin D you're going to need, because melanin was designed by Mother Nature to help us, because we were born, in terms of our ancestry, in sub-Saharan Africa, the darker tones. Because of that, we have the melanin, so that it kind of filters out a lot of the vitamin D content from the sun. So that is why you have, I believe, a lot more prevalence in the African American community with the coronavirus, because we are historically compromised in terms of our health, because for a lot of different reasons, and because genetically we do have, melanin, which creates a significant challenge when it comes to vitamin D absorption and utilization in our bodies. And vitamin D is a phenomenal hormone that is very, very critical in building our immune system. So those are some of the things that people can do to cut down on the sabotaging agents that compromise their immune system on one hand, and also to build their immune system on the other hand. In addition to a lot of different supplements such as quercetin, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin A, like I said before, vitamin D. Those are some of your mainstay vitamins as you go into any cold and flu season.
So someone had said something about turkey tail mushrooms.
So, yeah, mushrooms are renowned for their ability to build immunity. So, you have those, you have like your reishi mushrooms, your shiitake mushrooms, things of that nature. So depending on the individual, some people have susceptibility to mushrooms. They're not able to eat mushrooms for, certain genetically predisposed reasons and things of that nature, or shifts within their digestive metabolism. But for the most part, for most people, those specific types of mushrooms are very good for helping to build the immune system.
They are? Okay. That's good to know. And then
Yeah.
with regards of like one's own thinking and susceptibility to getting sick.
Mhm.
Now I have a feeling I'd like my belief is like it's how you think is like
Mm,
if you keep worried like, oh, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna get this, then
you will get it.
yeah, exactly. But
Exactly.
if you're just going about your day, just and then you're doing your due diligence too, I don't think that it would affect you, and
Mhm.
that's where your mind is so strong. The second thing I was gonna ask was like I think it was a reading I came across. They said that it's not set in stone, but they had some reason to believe that maybe a cause of autism was that the baby from 0 to 6 months there was not enough caring by the mother.
Mhm.
So and then it made me think because when you were mentioning that other study and the importance, for like affection and love and like these like we said normal human emotions, but it's like we get in this like loop or like autoplay, and then we kind of forget to have like real emotions, and like it's hard, like you kind of want like, all right, everyone just stop, remember where we are, so you can like pause. I think
Mhm.
it was like that last, like the last episode. It's like the doctor. How does if someone wants to like go down this path and never been there, and you're like, it's just simple as just closing your eyes and then going back to that energy and like staying true to your essence.
Mhm.
It How do you just stay consistent and keep going amongst everything going around?
That's a very good question. I'm first going to speak into your first 2 points, which are number one, as a man thinketh, so is he, or as a woman thinketh, so is she. A lot of what we are coming to have a deeper appreciation of confirms what ancient people have known for the beginning of time, which is that what you set your mind on, what you set your heart on, is what manifests in your life. You know, if you think that you are weak and vulnerable to the disease, then you will create that reality in your life because it is based on fear. And fear has been shown to be correlated to significant shifting of the sympathetic nervous system, what we call an upregulation of the sympathetic nervous system, where you're constantly in that fight or flight mode. So if you're like, oh my God, I'm going to get the virus, I'm going to get the virus, I'm going to get the virus, you're in that zone of fear. You're in that zone of fight or flight. And when you are in that zone of fight or flight, you are starting to increase your production of cortisol and decrease your production of things such as DHEA, which helps with the restorative part of your system and with your immune system. As you increase your levels of cortisol, that starts to decrease your body's ability to build immunity because you cannot, when you are out there traditionally fighting the lions and tigers and bears of life, that is not a time that your immune system is saying, oh, I've got to be concerned about a virus or bacteria. No, it's not concerned about a virus or bacteria. It's concerned about running away from the lions and tigers and bears. And so that's where all the resources go. And that's what makes your immune system compromised and allows the doors to open up to you being in a situation where viruses that will come in or bacteria that come in will take over and have a detrimental effect on your person. Also, as you start to marinate yourself, all of your cells in this cortisol, in this fear zone, you're increasing the inflammation in your body. You're increasing the oxidative stress in your body, which is going to eat up your antioxidant reserves. So it's going to, you could be taking tons of vitamin C and vitamin D and vitamin E, but all of that phenomenal nutrition is going to be eaten up to deal with the oxidative stress that has been caused by all of this fear that you're consumed in. So that's the first thing that you were referring to. Now, in terms of people saying that, Um, there are studies where children who are autistic are found to have mothers who in the first couple of months were not bonding with their children. I hesitate significantly to give any kind of credence to those studies because we get caught up in this zone of blaming the victim. Now, what I have looked at are studies that show that children who were born to mothers who were stressed during pregnancy, those are children who may have more susceptibility to things like autism and other kinds of complications. Now that makes sense because if you are stressed, the same as I was saying, as I was sharing with you before, you're starting to strip your body of vital nutrients that are needed, such as zinc, magnesium, and things of that nature that are critical to the proper development of our children within the womb. And then, of course, if you were stressed during pregnancy, you are more likely to be a mother, a new mother, or a reoccurring mother who has some postpartum depression issues, which may result in difficulty in bonding with your children. But the damage isn't because you were having postpartum depression and you were having difficulty in bonding with your children, more so than it was a pre-existing situation where you literally changed the DNA development or the epigenetics of your child within the womb and made that child more susceptible to certain nutritional deficiencies and certain pathways that are compromised. And we refer to some of those things as, you know, whether or not a child has a tendency of being undermethylated or overmethylated, you know, as it relates to how they're able to metabolize key essential nutrients such as zinc and B6 and copper and magnesium and all of these things that are critical to proper brain formation as well as behavioral management.
No,
Now, your last question in terms of how do you stay in the zone of being quote unquote sane in the midst of insanity, right?
exactly.
And that's a beautiful question. The truth of the matter is, I believe the best way to do that is with the breath, through breathing, and not only breathing on a physical level, but taking that breath on a more mental, emotional, spiritual level to really acknowledge that the breath is what connects you to the divine source and subsequently what connects you to everyone around you. And through the breath, you're able to shift yourself into the zone of what I refer to as being the eye of the storm. I'm not sure how much you know about hurricanes, but hurricanes are these beautiful, phenomenal, magnificent, powerful forces of nature that as they swirl, they create a center. And in the center of a hurricane, there's complete calm, which gives us an understanding of what is possible for ourselves to become the eye of the storm. And that is where the breath comes in, to give you that connection with source, to give you that connection and sense of communion with everyone, to recognize that the challenges that we perceive in this world, the differences that we create through our minds, really and truly, are not are not the truth. The truth is that we are all one. The truth is that we are always connected to a divine source of love. And it is through the breath that we remind ourselves and reaffirm that connection. And it is in that connection that we create that centeredness that allows us to be at peace, at joy, in the midst of any type of turmoil that may be swirling around us.
That makes complete sense. But it had my mind for some reason like question something else. I remember someone saying like, you know, it's not good to be happy too long. You can't if you stay in a happy state too long, then the universe is gonna get you, and then that's when it comes. You gotta be caught. You gotta be aware and make sure you don't get too happy because it's too much energy. I just wanted to know like that.
Well, I people say interesting things
Yeah,
when they want to justify their unhappiness, you know, and I'm not necessarily talking about quote unquote happiness, which seems to be based more in what circumstances are. So people become happy based on how much money they have or possessions they have, whether or not they have a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a wife, or, if everything is going hunky dory in their lives. What I'm talking about more so is being more aware of our connection to source, more aware of the ability to choose peace. Because even now, the research shows us that if we choose to be angry or frustrated or fearful, that depletes us, not only energetically, but it actually breaks down our cellular integrity. So now, for those people who are sharing that kind of information with you, you can say, hey, that's your choice. If you want to break down your health and well-being, have at it. But I choose to be in the zone of peace. Now, being in the zone of peace doesn't mean that we are unaware. There's nothing in what I'm sharing that's encouraging you to be unaware or to be oblivious. What it does allow you to do is to be aware and yet not be moved or not have your mind and your behavior controlled by what you are surrounded by. So
that's
it
all.
actually places you more into a position of power than the alternative.
That's really interesting. It's a good way to utilize your brain and like I not let any external factor have a a play in parts of your validity or your happiness or those things. But when now taking it in like a spiritual sense, like just as we're trying to uh get better and move towards achieving as much as possible and being our utmost true selves. I was reading this book by this Napoleon Hill. It's called Outwitting the Devil, and in that it's like the quote unquote devil was saying, like I don't like, and it made me to think about what you were saying in the beginning, as in regards to not really doing anything and just staying like in one place. It was like, yeah, I like to keep man, and it's like if you think of it in like a mental aspect, not like actual like horns and pitchfork, but that he likes to keep man drifting from thing to thing or woman drift like so you're not really completing anything, but you're just going in like a circle and just not
Mm-hmm.
really. And then when you were saying that, like we don't really, if you set structure and then you want to do something, there's a sort of like level of restraint in ourselves from wanting to do that. But then when we do it, there's more accomplishment. But then
Mm-hmm.
it's like going against that first like little resistance. And then
Yeah.
that's what someone explained the devil as. He's like, yes. So if you go on the treadmill's life, and the devil's a resistance.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it is. So you think of it like that, and trying to just cultivate the all around, like being aware mentally, spiritually, physically, and trying to like do this. I feel like also matters on the people you keep around you. But when those people are toxic or bringing you down and not really positive, and you're not desperate, but like we have a need for human connection. Is it, what do you
Mm-hmm.
continue with those relationships, or do you just stay alone and not drain yourself?
That is phenomenal question. And I want to first start out by saying you are not alone in having that particular concern, especially through the dynamics of what has happened in the past couple of months in 2020, a lot of relationships have come to a point where people are asking themselves that very same question, because now they have vision and clarity in recognizing that the people that they thought were part of their support system, that were part of them building and feeling more present and more alive, it's not exactly happening that way. So now people are challenged with, do I continue in this mode that I know is draining me and crippling me and sabotaging me and keeping me from truly being able to be who I am? Or do I, number one, shift into that zone of taking an assessment of self to determine what is truly important to me, and then to now use that to attract the people that are in alignment with who I am and what I want to be about. So it's a process. You know, you don't jump from A to Z in one leap. You have to go through in many times that valley of death. And the death that occurs is the death of the old you. And sometimes that includes old relationships, old belief patterns, old ideas, old habits. You know, maybe you were in that zone of thinking, yeah, to be angry is powerful. And now you come to the realization that that's not really helping me to get what I want to get. And it's not giving me who I want to be. So there is a process of allowing that old, the world of that old, to die so that the new can be born. And as you go through that valley, as you go through that, almost that cocoon, like a caterpillar goes into a cocoon, and it literally dissolves itself. I don't know if you ever remember studying that in science class back in the day, but the caterpillar will create that cocoon, and while it's in the cocoon, the caterpillar itself would actually dissolve into this soup, into this almost nothingness. And then from there, it reconstructs and becomes a butterfly. Wow. So that is the process that we go through, or we are invited to go through. Some people get scared when they get to that adventure in the cocoon where parts of the old us is dissolving, and it's like, no, that's who I am, and we leap back into becoming a caterpillar, right? Because it can be scary. But what can take you through that journey of the cocoon is realizing that there is something beautiful that is going to emerge on the other side, something beyond your imagination. Because looking at the caterpillar, who would think that a caterpillar could become a butterfly? You would never put those two together. So you have no idea of who you're going to be at the other side, but you know that it's going to be something wondrous and something beautiful and something that is a level beyond where you are in the moment of today. And sometimes what helps is to have some guidance and some mentorship, you know, to go through that process, to remind you that you are not alone, and to remind you that you are beautifully and divinely created, and you have the power to bring forth the new version of you, the 2.0 version of you, that is going to be bigger, better, faster, and everything else.
That's a really awesome mentality, I think, to try to hone in on. And when you were saying this, it's like I keep noticing these certain patterns or these certain actions or these certain ways of thinking that are all coupled in with success, fulfillment, and, like, you know, everything that's good. And it's when you follow these certain criterias, like in a certain way, like being mindful, understanding where your time's being spent, sleeping, uh, having a good mindset, telling yourself these good things, and then noticing all these things keep coming up, and with that, and trying to bring that into one's own life and really have that be a consistent thing. I feel like somewhere you have to be ready for life's curveball, right? And then
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
uh, it's like when you're so like laser, sometimes it's good to focus in, but sometimes we're too focused in on that thing, and then how do you kind of sort of do everything but still keep that breath, like in the back of your head, and still like
Well, you said it right there, to keep the breath, because the breath allows you for to make room for expansion.
okay.
In moments when we are constricted and unable to flex, to flow, those are moments in which we are not allowing the breath in. As you focus on allowing the breath to come in, it allows for that expansion of possibilities, not only physically in your body and literally, but also emotionally. It shakes things up. It prevents the calcificationing or the hardening of the body, mind, heart, and soul, because that is when you stop growing, and that is when you start dying, when you are not open to possibilities, when you're so afraid of reaching out and becoming more. So yes, it does require the opportunity to step into a world of curveballs, recognizing that curveballs are part of the process. So they are not to be feared, but rather the question becomes, how can I master the curve? Not how do I avoid the curve, but how do I master the curve? How do I make it to the other side?
Okay, I like that approach, and that way of thinking. It's it's a good way, as in, instead of looking at it, you're sort of giving yourself hope, like, all right, how can I do this? And I think that especially now, we've kind of like, everyone kind of drew back from, like, oh, okay, things can be accomplished and we can do things, and it's not like, oh, everything is like emergency and like we're
Yeah,
helpless and we don't know
yeah,
what to do.
yeah. And
And
that fear, that stagnation that just has people paralyzed because they're afraid. And that's, I think, the biggest message that I have for your person, which is fear is false evidence appearing real. Fear is the lie that you can't make it to the other side. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to make it to the other side and always be triumphant. There's sometimes when you just barely make it to the other side. You're like, oh God, oh God. But guess what? You have the ability to make it to the other side, whatever that may be. And it is the process, it is the journey that is important, and what you learn along the journey that is important, not necessarily the destination. So we are so afraid of not being able to have a clear understanding of, yes, I'm going to be this at the end of it, as opposed to saying, wow, I don't know what it is I'm going to be, but hey, let's do this. Let's do this. So the question that I present to my students is not, how do I avoid the journey, but rather, how do I prepare for the journey so that I can have the optimal outcome?
that I like that, and sort of like make sure you have everything you need to kind of weather any storm. Uh, um, so
And
what?
even if you don't have everything you need, to have the attitude or the belief that it can be found, that it will be made available to you.
In, it, it's crazy because you said that, it made me think of something else. I forgot who said that, but they did something along the lines where they were giving, I guess, two patients who were in pain. One was given pain medication, and they were told they were getting pain medication, and the other one was just intravenously through, like, and they didn't say anything, and they noticed that when they told the person that they actually felt more, uh, I mean, not more, felt less pain than the patient who didn't. So when I was thinking that, I was like, so if that's the case, couldn't we try to trick the mind and benefit in the same way as not give it harmful opiates and things like that, but maybe something else?
Exactly.
And then we were like, oh, okay, I'm better. And it's like our mind.
And it's not so much a matter of tricking the mind as it is acknowledging the power of the mind, heart, spirit in alignment with the body. So that is the key that I keep stressing to people. It is not one over the other. So you always hear people talking about mind over matter. What I stress is that we are working to get all of the different aspects of your being in alignment and singing the same song
Yeah, I
as
forgot.
much as possible.
Was it Da Vinci, the drawing of the man in the circle, and it's like the perfect human, or it's like at the optimal self. And I feel like it's when you're trying to do everything, it's like we kind of touched on it on the last episode. It's like there's like every facet of your chakra. There's It's like being attacked. So I guess it's like having the right playbook and like the right
Mhm.
game plan
Yeah,
against, and doing that. I guess I loved how you said that, as long as you have your essence right, you'll
mhm,
sort of attract the right people, sort of like your
mhm.
vibe attracts your tribe.
Yeah.
And
Because, but the first part of that is knowing who you are so that you don't get confused when other entities come amongst you and you think, oh, well, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that, maybe I'm this, maybe I'm that. So the more you are able to clearly put forth who you are, the stronger your frequency and your vibration will be in order to attract like elements to yourself. If you are not clear on who you are, then others won't be clear on who you are. And therefore, the ones that you need to be with will not be drawn to you because they won't recognize you because you don't recognize yourself.
wow, that's powerful. And that made me think of, like, just for some reason, I don't know why, but I notice, like, sometimes, like, I'll feel like I'm cluttered in my mind, or like I don't know where to go, where to start. And I was like, you know what? Let me just clean my room. And then, like, I'll clean my room, and like it feels more organized, and then I feel like my mind's so much clearer.
Yeah, yeah. That expansion. So there has to be synchronicity with your exterior and your interior. They have to be in alignment, or should I say, when they are in alignment, that is when you're in the zone.
That makes
And so
sense.
the challenge that we have is number one, recognizing, like I said, what path we are on, and therefore clearing away that which is not of the path that we seek.
And having, you could say, that self-discipline in making sure you're on that path. Like, say, if you're going to be on a diet, for example, or if you're going to, say you're going to climb this mountain, whatever, like, make sure you do it right. And then
Yeah. So to make sure you do it, what helps you to make sure that you do it is to remember who you are and why you're doing it. A lot of people are not able to hold fast to different promises that they make, whether it be to another person or to themselves, because they forget why they were making that promise in the first place. That's why I said the key is to have a clear understanding and maybe put it all around you to remind yourself when you have amnesia, and we all have amnesia from time to time, to remind yourself of who you are and why you are. That's why I encourage all of my students to create a mission statement for themselves, the same way that businesses create mission statements for themselves. For you to have your own personal mission statement. And then when I talk to couples, I talk about them coming together and having a mission statement for their relationship, for their marriage.
uh, with for them, and like having a mission, like just to touch on like this bond and like this union, your man and woman, and the way it's like sort of shifting is like, it's like a power thing, but I think it's like uh, equality, and having no the connotation of like authority, I think is like comes from like the negatives in us and like the ego and like the bad, and really with finding that, like I think it was I don't know who quoted, it's like, like everyone's gonna like do some harm to you. You gotta know when to just bite the bullet and stay there, and like
Well,
everyone's
that's going to lead us into a much bigger conversation.
oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
unfortunately, I have a 4 o'clock
Oh,
call.
okay.
But
If you
yeah,
could,
so
end on a quote, doctor.
uh, my biggest invitation to everyone is to recognize that you are not alone. Wherever you are on your journey, know that you are not alone. Know that there are other souls on the path that you just haven't met yet. So keep that in mind and allow yourself to release the insanity of the fear that is so prevalent in our world today, and allow the love to fill your heart and to guide your every thought, your every emotion, your every action as you move forward into 2021. Peace and blessings.
Elizabeth, thank you, and like always, it's an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you very much, Amar. And when you're finished, if you could send me a copy, I would love it.
Yes, I will most definitely send you a copy as well as a banner, and then I wanted to ask you. I had an idea, not now, maybe moving into January, as in I wanted to have different uh, like holistic doctor come together and sort of like have like a group, like maybe like a discussion or like a panel on how to help come up with like
Well,
a
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but we do that every
oh
Wednesday at 8 p.m. We actually have
yeah
something that's called The Doctors Are In, and I have a panel of myself
oh
and 3 other doctors that
can I,
we just take questions from the audience.
that's
So
awesome. I
let
would
me give
love
let me
yeah
go ahead and give you the link to that. Hold on a second.
okay awesome
And I invite you to join us. And I'll also put in there the link to the YouTube of the past 2 that we've done so far, so that you can see. And these are fantastic doctors. And we have a medical doctor, a chiropractic doctor, as well as a mindset doctor. So
oh that's a
phenomenal.
I wish today was Wednesday.
Well, yeah, you just missed last
Yeah.
night. So I will put in there the link to our YouTube channel. So that way you can see, like I said, the past ones that we've had, and you can register for the one that's coming up. So
Yeah,
here's the link.
that's awesome.
Here's the link for this one. Okay, there's my chat. Here we go. So that's the link for this one that you can register for next week, Wednesday. And let me go ahead and give you our YouTube channel so you can see the ones that we just finished doing. Okay. So did you get both of those links? Two different
Yes,
links.
yes, I did get them. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Uh,
So enjoy. And we would love to have you come on and ask questions because once you register, then you're going to be given a link to be able to actually be part of the conversation. And you can ask whatever question you want to ask. You can come as many times as you want to come and really pick everybody's brains.
oh, awesome. And if I know any, well, the first one I want to come to, but I could already think of different individuals who I could benefit from this.
Oh,
Can
please share it with as many people as possible because that's what we're here for. We're doing this as a service to the community because we're very concerned about what's happening and we want to make sure that money is not an issue. So there's no charge for this. People can come and like I said, I have a panel of doctors from all these different disciplines, so we have the chiropractor, we have the medical doctor, functional medicine doctor, we have myself, and we have a mindset doctor. So practically any question you ask will be able to be answered from anything from suicide to cancer. We got it covered.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it, and that's so awesome. You're doing that. You're uh, I can't even think of it, but thanks so much, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Have a blessed day and week, and
You too. Thank you so much, Amar. Bye bye.
bye.